Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. It's Matt Coleman, one of the co-founders of Magnify World. We champion leaders in the innovative space of augmented reality and virtual reality. And today we have a very distinguished guest from Los Angeles. In fact, from the Palisades. We found out that our shutters are the same in the same area for some reason. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. But Jason Yim, he's the CEO and founder of Trigger. And they are a mixed reality agency, been in the US for 15 years. And in fact, one of the points I wanted to ask you about, it says on your website that you've done 175,000 hours of development. So we want to talk about some highlights in the next 30 minutes, Jason, around that. So welcome and looking forward to the chat today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. We actually I think we're just breaking 200,000 now. So we haven't updated the site yet, but it's a good timing.
Wow, that's an achievement that is worth talking about. So that's over the last 10 years. A lot of the projects you've been doing are focused on the entertainment business. Hence, you're in, the Hollywood, Californian market. You've had a lot to do with film and television, but you've also done some interesting projects in sports and in the entertainment business. We're going to talk also around the future of 5G and smart glasses and sound and everything like that. So where would you like to start? Could you give us an overview of what Trigger is and where it's come from in the early days and how you saw the opportunity with the mixed reality business?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So like you said, we've been around for 15 years. We actually started as a film marketing agency, so on the digital side. So we did a lot of kind of big IPs, like we were the Spider-Man agency for Sony for all their movies. The interesting thing about being on digital marketing was there was a very short innovation cycle. Like every single time you launch something, there's a next weekend, there's another big movie. So that's always this game of catch up. And the great thing was like it was almost like an experimental playground because the client was always pushing for try something different, do something different on mobile, another iPhone app or something like that. But our first AR app came out of that. So it was webcam based AR. It was for Sony for District 9. And you literally had to hold up like a printout in front of your webcam and to see the 3D thing kind of show up. So it's like a funny three-way kind of like a window into the AR world. But even in that kind of clunky state, we felt like, wow, there was something really special about that. We were actually bringing those kind of like digital characters and the film assets into the user's world just through the camera. So from there, in 2012 was when we first started working with mobile AR. And the big player at that point was Qualcomm. They had a group called Vuforia, which was like the main platform for mobile AR. And we were there. We met them at GDC. We met their CEO. They were still in R&D. And from there, we became their showcase developer. So every single piece of new technology coming out of this Qualcomm team, we were the first to kind of bring it out to the public eye and apply it in a creative way. So there were a lot of kind of technical AR firsts because of that relationship.
Yeah. Actually, that's interesting, Vuforia. What's happened to that platform?
So
that was shut down, or
no, it's still going, but it got bought by PTC. So PTC is a much more enterprise facing company.
That's right. Yes.
So they shifted their focus from consumer to more enterprise.
And talking about different development tools, what's your favorite, or do you work across all the gaming engine technologies? And I noticed you're also a preferred Snapchat company as well for filters. What's the breadth of your development?
And we are kind of end-to-end solution for XR, for anything AR, basically. So everything from kind of like XR media units to, like you're saying, like social AR. So we're proficient with Snap, Instagram, Facebook. We were actually the first agency to create a Snap lens outside of Snap. We were their guinea pig team when they were creating their lens studio, which was like their public tool. But we used their existing internal tool to start building lenses with and gave them feedback during that development process. Right. And then Web AR. So that's another kind of growing area for us. We were first there as well. So we were partnered with Eighth Wall and Sony for Into the Spider-Verse. And that was like the first big public showcase for Web AR. And then of course mobile, and then head-mounted devices.
And how strong is your development team? How many people do you have? Are they all based in America?
Yeah, we're all, our dev team's all US based. I think we have 12. We're very much Unity focused. So we have
that was
12 Unity guys. We are doing some work in Unreal as well for some specific client needs, but most of our work is Unity.
And do you find, what's the idiosyncrasy with the different gaming engine technologies? Is that Unity is a preference for any particular reason?
I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? So if the great thing about Unity is kind of its flexibility. We can, in a lot of these marketing projects, there are many other things that we have to plug into. So it's not just making something look great in a video game. Yeah. Like we might need to, like on the sports side, we have to plug into live data streams that are coming in. There might be something on the shopping side or some other back-end things that are not really traditionally gaming related that our projects have to connect to. And that's the power of Unity. But if you want to do something, for instance, like on a VR project or something, and you want it to look amazing, kind of AAA game quality, like the visuals may be easier to achieve on Unreal, but all the back-end UX stuff would probably be easier to do on Unity.
Right. Yeah, no, thanks for explaining that, because there's a lot of developers out there that are probably looking at either or one. So, and it's good to get your opinion on what works. So tell us about some of the other movie projects you've done, and maybe even, if you can, any activation rates in regards to the consumer take-up of some of these promotions that you've worked with the studios on. Is there a particular benchmark that you'd like to try and achieve, like, 10% of users that have the app actually engage, or is there a benchmark yet? I mean, Pokemon was the big benchmark, of course, but how do you analyze the results that you achieve out of the gamification or it may not be just gamification, it could be education?
I mean, the great thing, and then again, this kind of ties into Unity too, is just like how much we can build in terms of tracking. So for us, like there's, we have kind of 4 areas of focus, right? We focus on innovation. We focus on providing strategic leadership for our clients. We focus on actually XR content creation, which is very different from just taking marketing material and making a nice layout out of it. We can actually build stuff from scratch. And then the final piece is measurement for us. And that's all kind of planned from the very beginning to, we make sure we know what the client KPIs are at the very beginning, and then we deliver to that at the end. But just last year on the entertainment side, we did the AR for Star Wars, for Spider-Man, and for Toy Story 4. So those were like $3 billion movies in a single year, and we were super lucky to actually have done all the big AR activations for those.
And so what was the experience for the Star Wars and the Toy Story programs that you rolled out? Was that did you create an app that people downloaded from the store, or was it part of another app? Or
yeah, so super interesting. So they were all kind of like slightly different, and then I think it shows the different approaches that a studio could have. Spider-Man was this kind of dedicated approach. So we've built a franchise app for Spider-Man for a few years now. So this was last year. We updated it with we actually rebuilt it from scratch, but we added a lot more content specific for the new film. But for entertainment, if you have a big enough property like Spider-Man, you can get people to download an app just for that. If your movie is not like a Spider-Man, like one notch down, the effort to get people to download that app is probably not worth it. Yeah. So the next approach is kind of similar, is Star Wars. So Star Wars has a main app, an official app that has content coming from lots of different areas of the IP. for that one, we just created a content module to stick inside the official Star Wars app. So this was a Bose AR module. And the neat thing was it was for audio AR. So you put on a Bose headset or the frames, and you run the app, and you get fully immersed into these 3D audio scenes from the past movies. So it was a really unique experience. We got to work with Skywalker Sound. They actually kind of created custom audio for us. They went back into the libraries to pull stuff that people hadn't. I don't think people had really heard it, because you're seeing it with all the visuals normally, and this was like extracted and really kind of called out. So for all the audio files out there, it was like a amazing experience. Like you could literally, there was one scene where it's full sixed off in the Millennium Falcon, and you could walk around the Millennium Falcon and get closer to all the different sounds that are on the ship. And it was taking sounds from Galaxy's Edge plus the original movie tracks and sound effects and stuff like that. But it was a super fun project. And then Toy Story 4, which I think is also a very clever approach, was to take the Toy Story 4 content, and it was being placed inside Regal Cinema's app. So Regal Cinema already had like 9 million install base. So it's a great bump for Regal, but then also, for Disney, it drops the content directly where the users are, plus where the transaction is happening. And then we took that same content module and is then being used within other Disney apps as well. So it was kind of build once and then use in many places after the initial.
Yeah, I've seen some interesting activation rates from some New York agencies that, have had an increase in engagement with AR of around 15% to 20% of users, which is actually quite high when you think about, email database marketing could be like 0.05% or 1-2% engagement, right? It's, the real advantages of AI is the interactive side of it. But if you're, integrating exclusive IP like you are, it's going to drive it through the roof, right?
Yeah, I mean, the engagement times are, I can't share specific, but like, for instance, Eighth Wall just reported for their activations in general for Web AR, 50% are over, 80% are over 1 minute of engagement, and 50% are over 2 minutes of engagement. And we've had projects that are way north of that for average engagement. So it's like there's significant time spent, and it's it can also, another KPI for us, for instance, on some of those apps, is how much click through is there from the AR portion, let's say, or the entire app into ticketing. And that's something else that we can measure. And we are seeing great success numbers on that too.
What about merchandising? Because that's a big, important revenue stream like it's never been before with the closure of cinemas and everything like that. I was just reading this morning that the Chinese market is 97% down from last year, which is, well, you may as well be closed, right? Merchandising is going to be vital to try and prop up some of these revenues. And obviously the OTT and streaming platforms, as we say, have never seen growth like it before. And Disney obviously is struggling because they've got probably half their revenues from the Disney worlds versus, Disney Plus. So, I mean, where do you see some of the opportunities with AR and VR, with television even, and streaming?
Yeah, so I think the great thing is, like, that's where our our kind of like pillars of expertise. We have entertainment marketing, we have fan engagement, which mostly for us is sports, and a little bit of music. But on the sports side, we do AR for the PGA Tour, the NHL, NBA, for one of the big NFL teams as well. And then we also do augmented shopping as another kind of pillar. And the great thing is just like, it's interesting, like you're saying, on entertainment before, especially with film marketing, it was about awareness and then ticketing. But now, like, all the economics are changing and the dynamics are changing. So we can kind of, because we've cross-trained, we can take all the stuff that we've learned from augmented shopping for the normal brand world and now easily kind of apply it to what we're doing on the entertainment side. So same thing with sports. So something that like for broadcast for us on the sports side, that's really big is using live data, like having a synced experience as you're watching the game. So I could be watching, a football game, and then in AR, I could get all the latest stats that are more detailed than what you get at broadcast or what you get, definitely at stadium, brought right into your mobile experience. So that kind of similar approach could also be done for entertainment.
Yeah. And how do you, get the real-time data, and what are you actually visualizing? Is it gameplay? Is it an avatar world? Is it a digital stadium that appears? Like, remember the earliest promo video I saw of HoloLens 1 was, these guys crashing through your dining room wall with a, gridiron ball, just throwing it around the room and smashing up your room, right? I mean, look, I don't even know how real that was back then, but, what is real? What can you do?
That can be real, but what we're finding is like, I think AR, everyone knows AR can do crazy eye candy stuff, right? Like the football player crashing through your wall. But how many times do I want to see the football player crash through my wall? Like it's, one time it's cool, second time you've already seen it already. So what we're really pushing for is utility. And the stats that we get are, and it could be slightly different. So for NHL, the project was, it was the first time there was live stats from the ice. So the players had positional chips on their uniforms, and the puck had a chip in it that you could track the puck on the ice. And that had never been seen before. Like no one knew how fast their guys were going, or how fast the shot was at any time. So that was like, and we presented that as a 1-to-1 AR recreation on your tabletop. So you could tap on any player, see their average speed, see their current speed, all that kind of stuff. With the NFL, it's more of taking. There are some data feeds that are normally coming out of an NFL game already that is being shared with like broadcasters like ESPN and stuff like that. But it's usually in much more detail than what you actually get to see on screen. So we can pull that data and then kind of represent it in AR. So if you are at the stadium, normally at a football game, you don't get a lot of the broadcast information that you would get at home. So using AR, we can actually overlay that over the field. So a lot more stats, a lot more of the like play-by-play announcements that you might not actually get at the stadium. For the PGA, we again, this is kind of tournament based, but we have a product that's soft launched earlier this year and waiting for the new tournaments to happen again. Is a leaderboard, a virtual leaderboard, an AR leaderboard that kind of follows you through the game. So normally at the golf course, there's like one physical leaderboard that everyone can see, but it's at the clubhouse, and then once you're gone, you don't know where you can't keep track of the standings and stuff. Now we can kind of bring all that data along with you as you follow along. So,
excellent! That's amazing insights to sports. And look, we want to change the subject now to 5G and how that would make all those experiences even better than it was a couple of years ago, from possibly when you were doing all this work, right? I know you've been working with Verizon, probably multiple carriers, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a big 5G project about to launch in August that hopefully we can share more when it comes around. But the big benefits of 5G, like the first one immediately for users is going to be just bandwidth, right? Like you can now download, much larger files. And for us, that's volumetric is a big, when you have, for entertainment, volumetric capture of actors, and characters and stuff like that. Before on an app was a little bit prohibitive because it's such a large file size. Like your app becomes a 2 gigabyte app and no one wants to download that. But now with 5G, you can keep your core app smaller and then just stream all of this content that you want into that experience.
So can you just explain volumetric capture to the audience? And I know there's in Los Angeles, there's quite a few facilities that I've been over to Intel Studios, which is probably the largest in the world, because, you know, and that grew out of the sports project in Israel, right?
Yeah.
But then there's, you know, smaller capture suites. How do you, what are you capturing in the movie business in particular around that?
So what volumetric capture is basically they put an individual inside of a stage, a green screen stage that has 160 cameras around it. So you're basically capturing full 360-degree video of a person. So when you're done capturing it, and that's processed, you can place that person in AR or VR and then walk around them and see them from any kind of angle. So it is pretty amazing, and it's like the difference between the Intel version, which is like a giant kind of you can literally capture a basketball game with two teams going on at a time. Theirs is about large captures of lots of people, but the fidelity isn't quite there. The other ones, we use Microsoft solution. We use Metastage, which we think is kind of like best in class. You know, the fidelity of the face and expressions and stuff is amazing. So for entertainment, it's super relevant because before we could to place a celebrity or an actor in AR, we would either have to, you know, do a 2D green screen stand-up thing, which didn't look very good, or we'd have to try to 3D model a character. So Spider-Man's easy because you don't actually see the actor, you don't see Tom Holland. Yeah. But if I want to put Peter Parker in, getting the studio and the client to approve Tom Holland's 3D model would be like just cost prohibitive. So now we can just stick him in a studio, just shoot him, and it's actually him, and place him into the experience. So we think that's huge. Like everybody wants to take photos with the actors, and you know.
I was just going to say that. I mean, what are the different experiences? I mean, basically, yeah, you can have your own selfie that looks photo real, and potentially you could interact with them. Can you in the future? Do you think is that part of the experience?
Yeah. So I mean, I think
through AI, it's just a digital twin of them, basically, right?
That's definitely where it's going to be heading, and that's what 5G supports too. So it's not only this idea of like a bigger pipe for more information, but it's much faster too. So like latency issues. So if you have low latency, what you can do is you can put a lot of the thinking and calculation into the cloud. So, you know, anywhere from like you can render in the cloud, you can do some, you know, voice processing in the cloud, and that will help solve a lot of that. So your user's phone doesn't have to be that clever, basically.
Yeah. Excellent. And we've got about 5 minutes left, but I wanted to definitely touch on all the patents that you've been working on over the last number of years. And can you tell us, are they all published now? But you can tell us a little bit more about that because they're all based around AR, did you say?
Yeah, they're all AR patents. We have 6 awarded so far. And they came out of a period of time with us when we were, they're all around AR play. So Lego's been a long time client of ours. I was actually embedded with the Lego XR team for 3 months some years back, took the family out to Denmark. We've done lots and lots of kind of projects with all of these different groups at Lego. And of course, they are the experts at play. Mattel's one of our clients as well. But in this case, it was actually working with some of the thinking came out of working with Weta Workshop out of New Zealand. So we were kind of collaborating on a product at one point, a board game that they were going to introduce. It was an IP called Giant Killer Robots that we kind of came up with together. And then they were building out the board game, and we were building out the AR experience around the play. So it was years before its time because, you know, it had to do so many different things to work. And but the neat thing was I think some of the thinking that came out of that turned into these 6 patents around play. So that I think are now becoming more and more relevant because the technology has actually caught up to what those ideas were, you know.
And Jason, so is that the patents more based around multiplayer functionality or delivering computer vision, triggering different things, or anything specific?
I mean, there's a couple that are fun that I could bring up. One is like using AR as a kind of as a control mechanism. So if you think about like an RC toy, like I have a car, or let's say a remote control tank, like right now I have a controller and I'm just looking at the tank. Like with AR, we could look at eventually through your glasses, but you just look at the tank and you can actually just trace where you want it to go, or just tap where you want it to go in 3D space. And then that tank could go there. So using that kind of like taking that spatial understanding and then apply it to the physical thing. That was one.
Better than the Monopoly board where you have to pick it up and move it, right?
Yes, exactly. And then we had another one was like just scanning your whole room and your whole space, and then using that information and then turning it into a game world. So overlaying, a table could turn into a mountaintop or something like that, or your chair could turn into a waterfall. Like using that kind of semantic understanding and then converting it into a digital world. And then we also have actually one on the enterprise side as well. So, but we tech IP, especially because we are on so many innovation projects, is like something that we're constantly trying to build. There's like the patent side of it for us, but then there's also just the core modules that we use on a day-to-day basis for all our clients, like building those up as robust as possible and kind of continually improving them and applying them to new projects. So that's key.
The last thing I want to talk about is the future here, and particularly around smart glasses. We were talking about spatial audio, particularly with Apple and their new smart glasses that are coming out. And there's all sorts out on the market right now, but where the quality is now, I mean, where do you see this going as a consumer product or even enterprise in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, 5 years is a long time in this world, so I think which is cool. But I mean, there's a couple of things. I think that like one thing was working with Bose and Bose AR, and now Apple's like spatial AR is coming out. Like one thing that we learned from that was how important audio is going to be to the head-mounted experience, because I don't think that and we see this on the car side as well, where we've worked with HMI design for cars, like head-mounted stuff, but there's only so much visual information you want happening at any time, and it gets just annoying at a certain point or overwhelming. So I think that's like audio AR is going to have its moment when visual AR really gets onto glasses. So those two will go hand in hand, I think. For us, on the consumer side, it's going to be the big challenges is it going to be a device that is like all in one and you just use it at home? It just sits in your living room, in which case it's like, it's very useful in one room, which is a very different challenge to these glasses that you wear all the time, in which case you need it to be very useful at all times. And that's a big kind of content challenge, I think, Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think, I hope that is going to be an interesting future for all of us, where we don't need our phones anymore, right? So whether it's interacting with a watch, I mean, I can't fathom wearing a watch still, to be honest. So I know I probably should, being in the innovation space with the digital watch, but I just can't get used to it. My iPhone is, is what I'm happy with anyway. It's what you're happy with, I guess, at the end of the day.
But I think like it's going to be a combination of so many different behaviors, because we are learning with the voice assistants and stuff how to use our voice to control things, and that's going to be a big part of being on glasses. I don't know if you've tried the HoloLens 2 yet, but like the finger tracking and kind of typing in midair and moving objects is it's really impressive. It's like I feel like it's really getting there. But it's going to be. We actually talked to Magic Leap about this. Like, if there's not a standard in every single app, on an iPhone, you swipe and you tap. Every app uses the same few things. Once you get to like head mounted, and there's like audio, or you can use your hands, or you can use eye tracking, and every app uses that system in a different way. It's going to take a long time to get the users to understand what is the right way to interact, and that's a big challenge, I think.
And look, I know we're drawing to an end, but I did want you to, a couple of last thoughts, because I think this will be right up your alley. Live virtual concerts. I'm sure living in LA, the home of Live Nation and everybody else here, have you looked into, live environments now?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we were actually on a big Coachella project right before AR project for Coachella right before it got moved. So that was more using AR for utilitarian purposes. But I think, music's interesting. It's going to be this balance of like there's the whole Zoom performance thing was interesting for a while, but I think people want their art. They want to see their artists in a big way,
Yeah.
They want to see them like really performing on stage and something exciting. And I think the stagecraft tech that's coming from, from film, that's going to start blending into the music side. Volumetric is going to start being part of that, can you save some of that as a tabletop experience, or even in volumetric, you can have the artist life size performing in your living room, but there's file size issues, which 5G will help solve. So everything is like intersecting at the right time, I think.
Well, that's terrific. Look, great insights. I've really enjoyed the conversation today, Jason. And could you give your company a shout out, and where can they find you online?
Yeah, sure. You can find us at triggerglobal.com. That's the best place to see all our web work right there. Our website with all our projects and stuff. And then, any questions and stuff, just email me at jason@triggerglobal.com.
Fantastic. Excellent to talk to you. And you'll find a copy of this online very soon. So, and we're going to be inserting potentially some content at a later date. So thanks very much for your time, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, I'll see you around the block.